The game has been played, the film has been watched, and now it's time to tell you about what was revealed in the Indianapolis Colts preseason opener against the Buffalo Bills. Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Colts, your daily Indianapolis Colts podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Colts fans, thanks so much for tuning in and making us your number one listen of the day. This is your daily podcast covering your Indianapolis Colts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. I am Jake Arthur, joined as always by my partner, Zach Hicks. For anyone who is new to the show, you probably know us from horseshoehuddle.com. I'm also a credentialed member of the Colts media and a member of the PFWA. I've been there at Grand Park pretty much every day, bringing you guys my notebooks. They're on Horseshoe Huddle. They're at the facility during the week, during the season, so you can catch me there. Zach, tell us and our new friends here a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, no, I'm the resident film guy with Horseshoe Huddle at the moment. I guess, made my name in the indie market at Stampede Blue with SB Nation a couple of years ago. Talking credentials, I've been credentialed down at the Senior Bowl a couple of years. I've done a lot of draft work for Draft Wire, Cover One. So I'm a big draft nerd, film nerd guy. So I'm sure you guys have seen me around.
Yeah, that's how he has buttered his bread so far, guys. If you missed it or just prefer to get the Cliffs Notes version of preseason games, the Colts fell to the Buffalo Bills 27-24 on Saturday. Quarterback Sam Ehlinger looked pretty good. The young tight ends looked good, as did the depth pass rushers, and some guys who were in the thick of some training camp battles. If you haven't already, just be sure to check out our previous episode for more details on all that. However, as Zach said, his specialty is film study, so he's going to tell us about what he saw from this game. But before we grind the tape, so to speak, let's get you guys caught up on what the Colts were saying after the game. So first and foremost, in the preseason, you just kind of hope to get out unscathed. Unfortunately for the Colts, they didn't come out completely clean. Cornerback Isaiah Rodgers, as Frank Reich said, he was in the concussion protocol. As Frank said, so he'll enter that and hopefully get better quickly. And then wide receiver Kiki QT had a groin injury, and that was it as far as injuries goes. There wasn't really much update on that when Frank spoke on Sunday afternoon. So there's a whole thing. Rodgers will have to be able to practice on a limited capacity and full and everything to be cleared for game action whenever that is again for him. Let's see. Zach, was there anything you saw that popped out after the game or today when Frank spoke?
Yeah, no, the biggest thing was today when Frank Reich was talking, and I think we have the whole quote here, so you can read it after I say it or just read parts of it here. But Frank Reich really highlighted that he has a strong belief in not showing anything in the preseason, just running the most basic concepts on offense and just giving guys one-on-one opportunities, not really scheming them open, not really scheming for an opponent, not really trying to do what he would do in the regular season game. And you could see that. I mean, we talked about that on yesterday's pod quite a bit, and we were kind of talking people off the ledge a lot yesterday on social media in regards to this. But yes, it was the Colts' first team offense versus the Bills' second team defense. Would you like to see them win the one-on-ones a little bit more? Sure. You want to see Alec Pierce and win that route against Kyrie Elam. You want to see Michael Pittman Jr. Win that press coverage route against that backup corner that they had on that fourth down. You would like to see Paris Campbell make that catch on the one that he dropped. You would want to see better, just like Frank Reich said. The guys could have been a little bit better, but they're not really trying. I'm not saying they're not trying to score, but that's not really the emphasis here. The emphasis here is not scheming guys open and stuff. It's just seeing how they'll do in these one-on-one opportunities. That's why, again, like we said yesterday, these joint practices with the Lions are going to be more important than any preseason game because it's a more controlled environment just to test those things that you were showing in these games. Whereas on Saturday, we saw these guys get 10 reps of one-on-one coverage. So if you lose 6 of them and win 4 of them, it's still going to look bad because everyone's going to say, oh gosh, they lost some reps in the preseason. But like Frank Reich said, it's very basic offense. It's just trying to see what these guys can do one-on-one. It's seeing what the running game can do with man blocking. But come regular season, this is nothing like what you're going to see in a regular season game. So it's really not that important. It's just important to see these guys in very isolated situations, which, again, you really don't see much in the regular season.
Yeah, you hope to do well as a team, but like Frank said, it was a lot about one-on-one evaluation rather than unit and team and even offense and defense. And Frank acknowledged, the Bills kind of they won that one. Something else he said, he really seemed to be into Nyheim Hines quite a bit more. With Jonathan Taylor out, Nyheim got the lion's share of the work there. And Frank said, I love Nyheim, and certainly we're looking to get him touches and expand his role, whatever that means. And he basically said they're not going to show much in the preseason, and Nyheim basically has more things in store than what we all saw on Saturday. So thought that was a good one to see. We've kind of been talking all preseason and summer that Jonathan Taylor and Nyheim Hines aren't going to counter each other. They're not going to eat into each other's touches and work, essentially. They have their own roles. Nyheim is basically his own position. And Frank kind of acknowledged that. We're going to see there's more in store for him.
Right. And the other thing I want to point out, too, that I liked that Frank Reich was talking about was when he talked about his defense. He mentioned it a lot yesterday in his post-game press conference, in between all the wide receiver talk, obviously. He said that the defense looked good out there. They're running around, they're forcing a lot of turnovers, and that's something that this defense wants to be prideful in being able to do. Take the ball away. They were second in the NFL in turnovers last year, so they want to see that mentality from the bringing up anything. They're not running like trap coverages or exotic blitzes or anything like that, but still being able to take the ball away and capitalizing on offensive mistakes with your backup defenses. Like, you just want that mentality to keep seeping down to every single player that steps foot on the Colts field. So seeing that, I know Frank Reich was very adamant, and that's a good thing that they saw here in yesterday's game.
Yep, absolutely. They also acknowledged Jonathan Taylor is not going to play pretty much at all in the preseason. The starters are not going to play. Yeah, I know you're happy about that. The starters are not going to play in week 2 because they're going to simulate plenty in these 2 joint practices with the Lions. And then the guys are actually going to play a bit more than a quarter in this third game. So that's going to be their real tune-up. Yeah, not great. So honestly, they played over a quarter this week, but it sounds more intentional, like could creep more towards a half. I mean, it seems risky, but they really want to start the season 1-0, which is understandable.
And what seems interesting about this third game, and why I'm not, I don't love it. Obviously, I hate preseason football, but this third one, they said they're going to treat it like a dress rehearsal. So I'm assuming we're going to see more of them actually running kind of some offensive stuff, maybe some more mesh stuff, some more route concepts and down the field, not just one-on-one stuff. They actually want to simulate an actual game with these guys in that third preseason game. So I do think this third preseason game, we'll learn a little bit more about this team. And if you guys want to start the cry for a veteran receiver after that game, if the young guys don't look great, I'm with you. If it carries on into that third preseason game and it kind of carries through the rest of this camp, I get it at that point. But let's wait until the dress rehearsal game against the Buccaneers before we, officially say that all these young guys just can't play.
Not to mention, the Colts are going to be very open-minded about the waiver wire and preseason cuts. Like, just because they haven't got a veteran now doesn't mean they won't find someone right before the season. Like that, they're always going to do that. We've seen several players have a significant role with the team that they just acquired right in that week or two.
Yeah, they're going to get a firsthand look at the Bucs in that third preseason game, and the Bucs have 8 to 9 receivers that could probably make a roster across the league. They can only keep 5 or 6.
Darden and Tyler Johnson and Scotty Miller, I think even you said. So there's options there.
Right. So yeah, I'm not too concerned right now about adding a receiver. They have plenty of time, but let's wait until that third game, that dress rehearsal game, before we start going crazy about this.
Yeah, no doubt. So up next, we're going to tell you guys about what was uncovered on the offensive and defensive sides of the ball after rewatching the game. But first, we're going to tell you about a service that could not be more important. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. Life is full of twists and turns, and it's important to show up for yourself through it all. Between the two of us, Zach and I, we've told you about our experiences with burnout, being overwhelmed, having anxiety and depression. Everyone goes through it at some point. If you ever feel like that, just know that you're not alone. Don't be afraid to reach out. That's what BetterHelp is here for. BetterHelp Online Therapy will assess your needs and can match you with your own licensed professional therapist in less than 48 hours. That's a big thing people have issues with, even with seeking out help, is just the effort it takes to find someone. And, there's the whole thing about it's got to be a right match. You don't just kind of want to pour yourself out to just anybody. But right. You can log into your account anytime and send a message to your therapist. It's not, you don't have to book an appointment, really. I've not personally been to therapy, although I'm open to it and I'm certainly due. I've always got things I can work on. Zach has told you guys before, on the other hand, that he's been to therapy and he's got a lot out of it.
3 times. So 3 times been to therapy.
There you go.
Yeah, I've
right?
done it.
Yeah. So yeah, if you're looking at us, Zach has done it. I'm very much open to it. We're not going to shy away from that. With therapy, it can take a few tries to find the right fit for you. BetterHelp makes it easy and free to change therapists if needed. In fact, so many people have been using BetterHelp that they're recruiting additional therapists in all 50 states. And they have a special offer for our listeners here. Get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/lockedon. That's 10% off your first month of online therapy at betterhelp.com/lockedon. All right, Zach. So film has been crunchicized. What were the biggest things that stuck out to you on the offensive side of the ball, starting obviously with the quarterbacks?
Yeah, so first we got to preface this by saying the film, it's still kind of just the game film from what we saw. It's not coach's film like I'll have in the regular season, but it's the best we could do. But yeah, starting with the quarterbacks, I think Matt Ryan shouldn't really get any fault for the first team offense struggling. I mean, he looked fine out there. I don't think there was any glaring bad choices, bad throws, or inaccurate passes. Even though I saw some people saying that the throw to Alec Pierce against Kyer Elam was a bad throw, but he was actually throwing it low and inside to protect from Elam, who was kind of shading the inside and over the top. Elam just made a great play on the ball, and Elam was all over that route. So I think Matt Ryan looked good. His best rep of the day was when he climbed the pocket, found Michael Pittman Jr. over the middle. He looked really agile in the pocket there and threw an accurate pass to a star receiver for a big gain. Nothing really to be upset about in what we saw at Matt Ryan. Just looked like a very steady, short, get the ball out, see what your receivers can do type of game. Matt Ryan looked good. Nick Foles was kind of up and down. Didn't sense
people
the
had
pressure.
Thoughts on Foles.
Yeah. No, I think it's a little overblown. Again, it's preseason. But Nick Foles, didn't sense the pressure from the right side on the fumble. Then came back and threw a bad pick, which I wish someone would have talked or would have asked Frank Reich about that play, because I could see it being just a bad throw. I could also see it being the route depth was not what Foles expected, and it was just a miscommunication. So I want to know why that was such a bad pick, but obviously we didn't really get those answers there. But after that, he led a good drive down the field, had some big throws, a really nice pass to Kylen Granson, a really good read on the mesh concept to the wide open running back that he saw was unaccounted for. So he looked fine. He looked fine. Nick Foles looked all right. Sam Ehlinger had a really strong game, looked great in the pocket, agile, athletic, accurate, and threw some really nice balls. And Jack Cohen should be one of these first couple cuts. I don't really know what Jack Cohen brings much anymore for the rest of the offseason. So Sam Ehlinger's clearly ahead of him. So I think moving on now from him, giving Ehlinger the rest of those depth snaps would probably be best. But overall, I thought it was a fine game from the quarterbacks.
That's what I was going to mention. If they did let go of Cohen, then Ehlinger's obviously not going to get much action during the season. Just pour those developmental reps into him. So right. Running backs, we mentioned Tyson Williams had that touchdown. Did you see anything real positive from them?
Yeah, no, I think Philip Lindsay was the main takeaway in this one. Obviously, behind Nyheim Hines getting a ton of targets and a ton of looks early on, that was great. Yeah. Nothing huge, but Nyheim Hines, they were showing even in the preseason they're going to give him the ball. But Philip Lindsay was the main takeaway and the main star in this one for me. Looked really, really solid rushing the ball, really smooth, athletic. Tyson Williams, though, I think had a really good game too. And then the guys behind that, Price did some good things, but I wasn't particularly wowed by him. Deion Jackson, I really didn't notice much out of Deion Jackson in this one, but I think the top 4 running backs are pretty solidified after this one. I think it's Lindsay and then Tyson Williams. And it's just on, can Price or Jackson usurp Tyson Williams there, RB4. But from the looks of this game, I think that top 4 is pretty set.
I think you are right. Now, the pass catchers, bit of a mixed bag, receivers and tight ends, although we pointed out we really liked what we saw from the tight ends overall. What were your main takeaways from the pass catchers?
Yeah, no, starting with the wide receivers, I think Alec Pierce had a couple of tough reps. And I think the Colts are really strategic in what they did. They put him across from Kyler Elam a lot. Don't get me wrong, Christian Benford had a good game on the other side. He's the 6th-round corner for the Bills that played on the other side. But the Colts wanted to see Alec Pierce versus Kyler Elam, who was a 1st-round pick, really good college corner. And they wanted to see how Pierce would react to press coverage there and react down the field. So a couple of tough reps early on facing some press, but Alec Pierce bounced back really well. Had a lot of nice reps down the field, had a nice little comeback catch. He had one along the sidelines that was really good. So I think Pierce had a really promising debut. Michael Pittman Jr. and Paris Campbell, I think they were a little more shaky. Pittman Jr. struggled against press against Benford. Paris Campbell obviously had that drop on that 3rd down. But again, it's hard to gauge too much intense snaps. After that, Isaiah Ford had some good reps. I think he got open a couple times, made some nice catches. And Ethan Fernia had a couple nice little catches as well. So those are probably the guys who are on that outside looking in, really trying to fight for that 5th or 6th spot. Probably didn't do enough yet, but who knows? And like we mentioned on yesterday's podcast, so I don't want to go into too much detail with them, but the tight end group looked great from top to bottom. Drew Ogletree looked really good, looked big, strong, physical. Kylen Granson looked fast and really didn't. He was like one of the few guys who didn't show any kind of drops or like bobbles or anything like that. Looked really clean catching the ball. And Jelani Woods just had an outstanding game. There was a couple blocks that he missed, but outside of that, as a receiver, looked really strong. So this tight end group, we said it all season. They're going to keep 4, and nothing in this preseason game changed that at all. I feel like I'm comfortable saying it's 100% a lock. They are keeping all 4 of these tight ends, unless there's a trade, but they're keeping all 4 of these tight ends.
I would be downright shocked. And so the offensive line, again, mixed bag, ups and downs. I think the 3rd unit really had some issues. What did you see top to bottom from this group?
Yeah, so starting with the starters here, I think Quentin Nelson, Ryan Kelly, Braden Smith were okay. I didn't have too many huge issues. Obviously, there's that clip going around of Quentin Nelson getting rocked by Tim Settle. But Nelson was kind of trying to jump him on a 4th and short play. And, it was a tough situation. Great rep by Settle, though. Great rep. It didn't really affect the pass, but whatever. Pinter and Matt Pryor, though, the 2 new starters, I think each of them had their own ups and downs. Pinter missed a couple blocks at the 2nd level, but he got out there in a hurry, so it looked good. Matt Pryor had a couple whiffs in pass blocking that you would like to see cleaned up, but overall, I think he was fine. He looked really good in the run game. So that's something to keep in mind going into the season. I still think, he's going to be the left tackle. He didn't really show enough in this game, like bad wise for me to say that's not going to be the case. So he looks strong. Just pointing out some standouts on the backup offensive lineman, though. I think Bernard Ryman had a very up and down game. Some major issues where you could see, that arm length is an issue. That arm length is something that he's going to have to adjust to. So you like to see that cleaned up, but I think this was a great experience for him. I think Frank Reich even said that in the post-game presser as well, where it was strategic to play Ryman as much as they did because they wanted to get him exposed to as much as possible. And we saw that, he played a lot and he got to see the ups and downs of being a left tackle in the NFL. And then the 3 standouts on the interior, I think Will Fries had a phenomenal game. Really, really good in pass pro. Could have been a little better in the run game, but overall, just a great game. Wesley French at center looked really good too. Super athletic, smaller guy. You can see that size might be an issue with him, but he brings it on every snap. And then Josh Seltzner had a pretty good game as well. I think he was the highest graded Colts player according to Pro Football Focus. Looked really sturdy in pass game and in the run game. So, who they keep out of those three is going to be interesting. But I think Fries is pretty close to a lock, if not already a lock. And those other two guys are probably battling for that 9th offensive line spot.
Yeah, I think they've really got some nice practice squad candidates there on the offensive line among those depth guys. It's going to be tough cuts all around, but even tougher to say who fits on the practice squad.
Right. Especially once Dennis Kelly comes back too, because he's going to take one of those like roster spots. So it will be interesting to see there. But that's what we got on the offense, guys. Coming up, we're going to go position by position on defense, and I'm going to talk until I can't, and until I'm lightheaded. I'm talking defense. But we got to talk about some bets. The Colts didn't cover the spread against Buffalo, but you can bet that I might have a little faith in them this time against the Lions. Whatever those lines are released, I'm not too sure what those lines are going to be, but I can bet on these backups dominating the Lions. Bet Online is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your betting needs. Find all your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games. Find reviews and news of every league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all your sports wagering information. From live in-game betting to scores to podcasts, they have you covered. The Colts and Bills smashed the over on the 38-point over-under on Saturday. So will the Colts do it again this next Saturday? Well, Sam Ehlinger's playing the whole game. They probably will.
Oh,
yeah. The perfect preseason quarterback. Right. Head to Bet Online today or use your mobile device to learn more about today's action. Bet Online, where the game starts. All right, let's talk some defense. And I want to start with this defensive line because we kind of talked about it yesterday. We talked about it yesterday. These defensive linemen played pretty well. But on film review, I mean, the one thing I want to throw to you, which I love seeing, is Dayo Odeyingbo and Ben Banigou both had extremely successful cross chops in this game.
Yes.
I gotta post them side by side along with Yannick Ngakoue's earlier in the game. But I thought that was so cool because that's what we've been seeing from Yannick Ngakoue. That's his move, or whatever. Have you seen them kind of working with him in practice, trying to get that cross chop done?
Yeah, it's funny. That was another thing I texted you during the game yesterday was I got so excited to see Ben Banigou try a cross chop, one of the Yannick cross chops in practice. It was unsuccessful. But in this game, it looked a lot cleaner. I forget who the left tackle was. It was either Pryor or Ryman just flattened him when he tried it. He got a little too off balance, a little too off his center there. But no, it looked pretty good on the game. I hadn't noticed Odeyingbo try it in camp, but it's very clear they realize who the best pass rusher on this team is, and they want to emulate him a little bit.
Yeah, no, it was great. It was great seeing both of those guys hit that. I think it was on the same left tackle in this game too, so he should have seen it coming. But it was really cool seeing that. But those were two standouts to me. Odeyingbo obviously had that one mistake in run defense early in the game, but outside of that, pass rusher, he looked really good. Ben Banigou looked really good. Dayo Odeyingbo was getting after it in the pass game. Now, I will say, Dayo is not refined whatsoever. You can see it still. Like he's obviously still working on it. Like this is his first real offseason, so we got to treat him like a rookie. He comes in there just swinging his arms like crazy, but it's so powerful whenever he lands anything. I mean, the play where Sterling Weatherford had his interception, he just rumbled through 3 blockers and knocked them all on the ground and forced that interception.
He's a wrecking ball, man.
He's a legit wrecking ball. Once they're able to fully refine that, it's going to be so good. Other guys who stood out, I thought, of the starters, obviously DeForest Buckner, Yannick Ngakoue looked great. Grover Stewart had a couple of run stops. Kwity Paye looked good as well. Curtis Brooks, his get off is so good. Like it is so fast. Like it looks a lot like, and I know this is not going to sound like this great encouraging thing, but he looks a lot like Andrew Brown did last year with the Colts, where every get off, he was the first guy off the line of scrimmage. So he looked really good out there. But yeah, Brooks is kind of like Dayo to me, where like once they're able to refine him a little bit, he's going to be really good. It's just he's not there yet. But I think it's stock up for guys like Curtis Brooks and Ben Banigou, who they're probably making the roster, but they kind of needed a little more insurance and some good preseason snaps. Those guys both looked really good out there this past weekend.
Yeah, and speaking of that, Zach put a couple pieces out, kind of a, guys who help themselves type of thing, as well as special teams over on horseshoehuddle.com again. So before I forget, you guys will definitely want to check that out. But as for the next level linebackers, that's been a hot topic for us throughout camp. And Sterling Weatherford, I'm going to point it out before you do. Sterling Weatherford, him, and who else really kind of stuck out on the film today?
Yeah, so Jojo Doman, I think, had a pretty solid game as well. It wasn't as flashy as probably what we saw in camp, but he had a couple run stops, a couple times where he was kind of in the backfield there. I thought he looked really good, but I think Sterling Weatherford and Jojo Doman have really separated themselves as the 5th and 6th linebackers. Forrest Ryan obviously would be right up there, your boy, but he's just not playing right now, so it's hard to really say. But Sterling Weatherford and Jojo Doman, I think, are firmly in that 5th and 6th spot, especially when you look at what Weatherford did on special teams as well. I mean, outside of another player I'm going to mention when we get to the secondary, Weatherford was the best special teams player in this game. So those two players, I think, really, really helped their stock quite a bit in this one.
And it's good to see Doman doing that in the run game, because far and away what I've noticed from him most throughout camp has been his effectiveness in the pass game. So for him to level that out a bit and have that catch up, that's good to see that he can bring it from both sides.
Oh, and wait, one more player to mention. One more player to mention. Sorry, just to jump you here. EJ Speed's hit was as great on film as it was when we were watching it live. Oh my gosh. What a hit, man.
He's almost like an unfair preseason player because he's had NFL experience for a few years. He's going to be one of the biggest, most athletic guys on the field at all times. But since he doesn't play that often, they get him the developmental snaps. And so he's playing against guys that are going to be out of the league, even though he's like a roster lock. So he's a cheat code for the Colts in the preseason. It's just not fair.
Yeah, no, he had a great game. He looked good. And if he has to play with Shaquille Leonard maybe missing time to start the year, I'm kind of excited for it. I want to see EJ Speed get some run because all we've seen of him so far in his NFL career has been pretty promising.
Yeah, they'll live if that has to happen. So defensive linemen, linebackers done. Cornerbacks, I already know who you were raving about ahead of time. So cornerbacks and safeties, who you got?
Yeah, so obviously Isaiah Rodgers was the absolute star of this game. I mean, that interception was so impressive. Again, just the ball skills and the way he moves, and I know the camp stuff. From you being there in camp, it hasn't been all super positive about him. But from when I was talking with a couple people, I think I was talking with Hag about this as well. He just comes off as a guy who's a gamer. He's just a gamer. Yeah. Once the game starts, he just goes to that next level, and you could definitely see it in this one. He looked great out there, but talking about some bottom of the roster guys, I didn't think any guys really stood out too much on defense. I think Dallas Flowers had that amazing one-handed pick that no one's talking about on that 2-point conversion. There's actually a really nice picture of it from the pictures that we get for our articles. I really want to throw that into an article, or I don't know if someone's already used it.
I used it today.
There you go. Yeah, because it was so impressive and nobody was talking about it when it happened. I was like, oh my gosh, look at that play. But he looked great on that one play. He had some ups and downs on defense. But in terms of special teams, Tony Brown got some run at gunner. Marvell Tell III had a couple tackles on special teams as well. So when you're looking at that 5th and 6th roster spot at corner, that's going to be the biggest thing. Talking some safeties now, just real quick before we run out of time, is Nick Cross looked awesome. We love everything we saw from Nick Cross in this one. I know you had him as your player of the game on defense. We talked yesterday. Ronnie McLeod and Julian Blackman looked really solid as well in their limited snaps. And then the one safety I really want to point out is Trevor Denbo. I don't think he had a great day on defense, but he was all over the place on special teams. I mean, I logged him with...
I saw 43 flying around like Matt Giordano of old.
Yeah. No, I logged him with 5. So the way I graded special teams was either if you made first contact with the return man or a tackle. Either you were, you're hitting the guy first or you finish with the tackle. And I counted him with 5 on 8 coverage snaps. So he was there on every single play. He looked great on special teams, and I know I'm not going to say this right now, but if Armani Watts, maybe they're not as high on Armani Watts or something like that, and Denbo looks amazing on special teams all preseason, maybe he could be that 4th or 5th safety that's that kind of coverage guy. I don't know if that's anything that's in the cards there, but all I know is he looked great on special teams this past game.
Yeah, he's not really flashed much defensively. From what I can recall, he normally is on the wrong end of the one-on-ones. Special teams, you don't really get a lot of like real live hitting and stuff. You can see guys flying around and who gets to them and who gets to the returners early, and he's always been effective there. That would probably be my role for him. He's one of those guys you don't really want to see getting the reps defensively, but special teams, go ahead, go at it.
Right. Yeah, no, I would say my 3 stock up guys on special teams, if I had to do that, would be Denbo, Sterling Weatherford, and Marvell Tell. Those are the 3 guys who I think really helped on special teams in this one.
I like it. That'll do it for us today, everybody. We'll be back with you tomorrow. The Colts get back to work on Tuesday with practice, so we'll tell you all about that. Then, of course, they welcome the Detroit Lions to town for a pair of joint practices on Wednesday and Thursday before the preseason game on Saturday, which is at home, and I cannot wait to be back in the press box, finally.
Now, make sure you guys are following Jake on Twitter, at JakeArthurNFL. Like we said these last couple of days, these joint practices are more important than these preseason games. These are because they're controlled environment, and these coaches can really see what they want against an opponent. So I think this is going to be a really big week, especially to follow at JakeArthurNFL on Twitter. Follow at Zach Hicks 2 as well for all of my preseason film breakdown, if that's what you can call it. Follow our work over at horseshoehuddle.com, where you can see all of this work that we're talking about. Also subscribe to us on YouTube. Locked On Colts podcast is doing pretty well on YouTube. We're getting close to our 1,000 subscriber goal. And again, if we get there, this is the head. It's wonderful. So make sure you guys go over to the YouTube channel and hit that subscribe button. And then wherever you listen to your podcast, rate, review, subscribe, leave us a comment. Maybe don't go as much as that one guy did on our last episode. Wow. I mean, that was a beautiful love poem that was written to me. But yeah, I don't know.
We got some people that go pretty hard in the comment section.
Yeah, I had people saying like, "Oh, this is Zach Berner writing this." I'm like, dude, I cannot be that thorough. And my writing is not that beautiful. My writing is very standard. That guy's writing was gorgeous. For a second, I was like, oh wow, I was getting a little heated up. It was kind of pretty.
Yeah, no, that is either wife, mom, or stalker level poetry. So one of the two. Someone along the lines has a burner, and we just got to find
stalker,
out.
Man. Right.
Best case scenario. Now, thank you guys again for making Locked On Colts your first listen today. Now make Locked On Fantasy Football your second listen. Find the intellectual fantasy expert Vinny Iyer, who brings over 20 years of NFL expertise and a unique angle to give you guys the moves that no one else has. Get ready for your fantasy draft with Locked On Fantasy Football. We'll see you guys tomorrow.